Hello, I'm Laurie Lane-Zucker, founder and CEO of Impact Entrepreneur, and we are here at the SOCAP Conference 2019 in San Francisco, California. I am sitting with James Militzer, who is with NextBillion, and NextBillion is one of the absolute prime, high-quality media sources for the impact space that you can find. I hope that's a good enough plug. No, I'm a real fan of the journalism that James and his colleagues are putting out regularly, and so I'm delighted to have a conversation with James. James, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Laurie. Really appreciate the kind words, and thank you for thinking of including me here.
So NextBillion is published in association with or out of which institution?
It's an initiative of the William Davidson Institute, which is a nonprofit that is affiliated with the University of Michigan but independent of the university. And WDI works to advance economic development in emerging economies through business development.
So I assume you've been coming to SOCAP for a number of years now. How many years has it been?
Well, I didn't come last year. Prior to that, I think it was probably 3 years running that I've been coming. So this is my fourth or fifth SOCAP, I would say.
I'm interested in kind of getting, you've been tracking the impact investing space and the social entrepreneurship space for a long time, and I'm interested in kind of any broader kind of perspectives or things that you found over the last few years in terms of growth of the space, growing diversity in the space, growth of capital, just some broader observations that you've had.
Yeah, sure. I would say there's like kind of two parallel things going on that I've noticed. One is everybody's excited and very encouraged by the momentum in the sector and the growth that it's shown so far, but at the same time everybody's also discouraged and frustrated with the fact that even with all that growth, it still doesn't amount to anywhere near enough to make a real impact on the growingly urgent challenges the world's facing. So there's a urge to celebrate when you're with all these people here who are doing this kind of good work, but then there's this undercurrent of frustration and sort of dismay with the size and the growing size of the problems that everyone's addressing. And is the momentum of the growth into the impact space enough to keep pace with or exceed the momentum of the growing problems that we're all trying to address? That's the open question, and I think that's probably what everybody here has in the back of their minds when they're talking about these issues.
So the impact investing space, as the Global Impact Investing Network has been tracking it over the last few years, has been essentially been doubling in size, at least among their membership each time. I think the latest figures is somewhere north of $500 billion, right, in the last year. But the needs, as far as meeting, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals, are in the trillions of dollars. So what is your view of, and the view of the people you're talking to, how we fill that gap?
Well, I mean, getting regular investors involved is key, certainly. I mean, the wealthy investors, I think, have a growing consciousness of impact tools and maybe a growing interest and involvement with them. Everyday investors have less knowledge probably and sometimes less flexibility in making these investments, and probably broadening the range of options to include those investors and pension funds and all that is going to be key. I mean, the question I have and the challenge, I guess, that a lot of people are struggling with, amongst many, is what's the difference between impact investing and like ESG investing? Like you can get many people involved in investing in Tesla. I mean, sure, you'll make some money. If it doesn't make an impact, sure, it's great, but that's very different from investing in a company that is run by people in Africa, serving people in Africa, and facing challenges that Tesla will never face. So, I mean, there's those two different kind of approaches to impact investing, and maybe investors in the mainstream can participate in one, the profitable one, that maybe doesn't quite reach every corner of the world, but it's harder to get them to participate in the other, the one that really arguably makes a more direct impact with some of the most vulnerable communities that we all want to help.
And not that Tesla has been terribly profitable. They're certainly good at spending money, and they do some amazing things in the world. these other companies that you're talking about on the international development scene are most of them, 99.9% of them are not going to have the kind of revenue growth and scalability of a Tesla. However, as you've just said, the social and environmental impact of these companies is really can be very profound, which therefore requires kind of a different brain chemistry among funders, investors into those companies. Can you talk a little bit about this, whether we're talking about concessionary funding or whatever you want to call it? I'll let you choose the words, but just discuss that a little bit.
Well, I'm encouraged to see that there's growing awareness of the fact that that there is a need for concessionary capital. I mean, a lot of times I've been frustrated, and I think maybe others have been frustrated with the branding that has emerged in impact investing, that there are no trade-offs, that you can make as much or more as traditional investing while also making an impact. And a lot of these companies we're talking about, you cannot do that. I guess the question is, like, can impact investing scale, and should it continue with the brand that de-emphasizes these trade-offs? Even though a lot of the companies that really need the capital are the ones that make the bigger impact and the ones that also deliver lesser returns. I mean, it's hard for impact investing to be palatable to more investors without de-emphasizing the risks and the smaller returns that in many cases are necessary to support some of these companies. But at the same time, it's hard for them to reach every corner of the world and make the maximum impact it has the potential to make unless it does include these companies. And I don't know if I see a real way around that. I mean, it's kind of like the sector's got to have its cake and eat it too, otherwise it can't grow, but there's a lot of companies that are at risk of being left behind, it seems.
I'm interested, you're a media guy, I'm interested in getting your perspective on how the media is contributing or being kind of creating kind of hurdles and even disinformation at times, or misinformation around the impact investing space. You know, I look to NextBillion, I look to Impact Alpha, I look to certain journalists like Devin Thorpe and Ann Field who write for Forbes as people who are, you know, they really get the space. They're clearly mission centric. They see the full spectrum of the types of funding and investment that is possible in this space, and you do wonderful work. There's been, you know, then there's kind of a whole spectrum of other media that comes out on the space. Some of it is better than others. From my perspective, the kind of the average, the quality on average of the media has certainly gotten more sophisticated over the last 12 years. However, it's still uneven. And so I'd be interested to hear your thoughts as a media and journalism professional on the media's role in this space and how it can be improved. Where are there holes? Are there things that are not being talked about? Any thoughts you have on that subject?
Yeah, a part of my job at NextBillion is to go through the news each day and see what people are talking about in the sectors that we cover. And so I'm constantly coming across articles about impact investing in mainstream publications, and there's certainly been a noticeable uptick in the number of those articles and probably the sophistication of them. And for a long time it was just like, golly, had you heard that you can make a difference and also make money in investing? I mean, those articles are starting to become less prominent as I think mainstream awareness around impact investing grows and people are starting to delve into more meaty topics, not just the gee whiz, this is possible approach, but, you know, how does this work? What's the impact it's actually making? Even in the mainstream press, you're starting to see more of those in-depth pieces. So, I mean, the thing about publications like NextBillion is that we reach a very specific audience, the people who are actually doing work in these sectors. We can't and probably will never reach a mainstream audience of people who really have no involvement in social impact business. So the real main chance to get them is through mainstream media. That's sort of necessary to have happen. And yet at the same time, mainstream media is never going to bring the same interest or degree of focus that these niche publications are doing. So I mean, we need mainstream media to be involved. I think people like you who do a great job in providing platforms for raising awareness about these issues and these topics are essential to the process. And I mean, it's great to see voices that we all are familiar with being quoted in mainstream media articles and being featured more prominently in publications outside of the common ones that we're all already aware of here. But I mean, I think there's also, I guess, the risk that, I mean, mainstream media may not portray the impact sector in the light that we would like it to be. I mean, and that's, I think, part of growing and a necessary part of it all. It's not a bad thing to face mainstream exposure, and it can have a great impact on the sector's growth and the growth of individual companies. But people should be aware that there may be a downside to that exposure too.
Give me the domain name for NextBillion so people can go and sign up for your newsletters and attend to your wonderful journalism.
Well, thank you. It's nextbillion.net, and the site provides an open platform for people to publish articles related to social business in emerging markets. We're always in the market for new content, so if you ever want to reach out and have your business or organization or initiative featured on the site, let me know. Our contact information, my email is on the site, nextbillion.net, and you can reach me there.
James, thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.